spoiling your wedding anniversary night. Our 11th anniversary is coming up, and my wife Jenny and I were looking forward to celebrating this coming Saturday. Being business partners and constantly on the road together can really create tension in a relationship, and I've felt like we've been drifting apart lately. It was my idea to go back to Chicago for our anniversary. I prayed that it would put some spark back into our marriage. The plan was to go back to the same club where I proposed to her. I checked first to make sure it was still there and was thrilled to find out that not only was it still there, but it was still owned by the same people and hadn't changed much. I told Jenny that I wanted to take her there for dinner and dancing. She readily accepted my invitation with the enthusiasm of a little girl at Christmas. It was as if we were reliving that special night over 10 years ago. It didn't seem like so many years had passed. In those days, I grabbed any job I could and had to save up for 3 months for that night. Dad had given me money for the ring, but I didn't have the courage to ask him for more, so I was saving. I wanted everything to be perfect. After dinner and a few romantic dances, I escorted Jenny to the back terrace that overlooked the Chicago River. The bright city lights twinkled and danced on the surface of the water, stubbornly refusing to be taken in as the current tried to drive them into Lake Michigan. I couldn't have dreamed of a more beautiful night as I dropped to one knee and asked her to spend the rest of her life with me. Not a day has passed since then that I have regretted that night. While Jenny was still getting ready, I slipped out of the house and ran to the local flower store for a bouquet of flowers. When I returned, I went to the door and knocked, just as I had so many years ago. She was pleasantly surprised and invited me in with a wide smile. Of course, being a woman, she still had to fancy herself up, but 15 minutes later we were off like old times. My source was right. The place hadn't changed. It was almost like going back in time as the maitre d' escorted us to our table. Over our meal, we talked about how good it was to be back in Chicago. We both grew up here, went to school here, dated here, and got married here. But because of our business, we've been traveling a lot, and this was our first time back in many years. After dinner, we moved into the living room and sat at a table near the dance floor. They used to have live bands, but now they had a DJ playing a variety of tunes from big band to the latest rock and roll. I waited for him to play something slow and romantic, and then asked Jenny to dance. I held her in my arms as we glided across the floor, her head resting comfortably on my shoulder. We didn't leave the dance floor for the next hour, but eventually we both needed a break. We were back at the table after only a couple minutes when a man approached us. He had that rough, pleasant appearance that women like, and his well-built physique was obvious even through his clothes. Jenny Johnson?" he asked, obviously knowing her even before she was married. Jenny looked up at him. Dennis Blake. Yes, that's Jenny, but it's not Johnson anymore. Oh my God," she said, standing up and hugging him tightly. "It's been so many years. How are you doing?" she blurted out loud enough for some of the people at the other tables around us to hear. I noticed a woman at one table straining her eardrums in hopes of gathering some gossip for her treasure chest. "Well, I think the last time I saw you was about a year after we graduated high school," he replied, as they hugged again. For a moment, I thought she almost seemed oblivious to my presence. "Oh, I'm so sorry," Jenny said, looking at me and still excited. "This is my husband, Walt." I started to rise from my chair and held out my hand, but all he did was look in my direction with a slight nod of his head before looking at my beautiful wife again. "Do you mind if I join you?" he asked Jenny, already starting to sit down. "No, not at all. We have so much to discuss," she told him without even looking in my direction. To say I looked a little offended would be an understatement, especially when they both monopolized the conversation. He told her that he'd left the state shortly after the last time they'd seen each other and only occasionally came back for business. He said that since he was leaving in the morning, fate must have beckoned him to stop in for a beer before heading back to the motel. He saw her on the dance floor, but in the dim light he wasn't sure it was her, so he waited until we were seated and he was sure before approaching. I tried to appear understanding and acted satisfied, leaning back in my chair quietly and listening to them both talk about old times. He told Jenny how great she looked and that she hadn't changed a bit in 12 years. My beautiful wife was eating it up, along with everyone else, and my ears perked up when the conversation turned to sex. It seemed they had been each other's first, and now they were laughing at their naivety and inexperience. I could feel the cold stares on the back of my neck when, right in front of me, he told her that he should never have left without taking her with him. He said he had gotten married, but that only made him realize that he had left the woman he truly loved behind in Chicago. I'm sure some people around us saw the anger on my face when I thought about ending the conversation and leaving with my wife, but that's when, without even looking at me for approval, he asked her to dance. She acted like I wasn't even there when she held out her hand for him to take and accept. I'm sure it wasn't hard to see that I was seething with anger as they both walked out onto the floor. A couple at a nearby table commented on their behavior. Despite all the reminiscing and laughing they were doing, neither Dennis nor my wife were very calm in their conversation. I watched as he took her in his arms and began to lead her in a slow dance. At first, the distance between their bodies was very decent, but as time went on, it got smaller and smaller. I sat there sipping my beer and twiddling my thumbs as they continued to dance from one slow song to the next. I could hear more whispers from the surrounding tables. I sensed it was time. I walked over to them and patted dear Dennis on the shoulder. "May I step in and dance with my wife?" I said rather sarcastically. Neither he nor my wife looked very pleased when I took his seat. "Hi. Remember me, your husband?" I asked sharply. "What's going on? Why are you letting this guy monopolize our time together on our anniversary?" I didn't speak particularly loudly, but I wasn't whispering either. I knew some of the people dancing around us could hear me. "Oh, honey, I'm sorry," she apologized. "It's just so nice to see Dennis again." "I'm sure you heard. He was the guy who got my cherry," she said with a smile and a giggle. "Yes, I heard. I think everyone knows by now. If they didn't hear the conversation, they can tell by the way you act. I think he's trying to relive that night. His intentions are dishonest, Jenny. I want you to put an end to this." "Walt, come on, don't be like that. He's just an old friend I haven't seen in years. Please don't ruin this evening for me," she begged. "Well, he definitely ruined it for me," I told her. "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry, but I'll make it up to you, I promise," she said. At that moment, the song ended, and I felt someone pat me on the shoulder. The asshole was already back. "Come on, buddy. We haven't seen each other in 12 years. Be a good guy and give us some time to catch up," he said, loud enough to be heard by the people around him. I saw a woman with her mouth open in disbelief at the asshole's brazen behavior. The wife looked me in the eye. "Please, honey. It's been so long since we've seen each other, and he'll be gone in the morning." I saw the look of disgust on one guy's face and knew he thought I was a wuss when I relented and returned Jenny to her former lover. I could feel the looks of the other people in the room watching me as I snuck back to our table and ordered another beer. You'd think they'd probably go back to the table when the DJ started a set of fast songs, but no. They continued to laugh and flirt with each other while Jenny shook her ass, apparently completely unconcerned about the growing number of people who were learning about my increasingly dire situation. As the next slow song played, Jenny put her arms around Dennis's neck and, closing her eyes, laid her head on his chest. His hands went straight down to her buttocks. Some of the couples dancing around them looked at me, probably wondering why I was letting this go on. That was it. I didn't mumble to myself anymore. But just as I started to rise from my seat, the song ended and Dennis headed towards the men's room. Jenny came back to the table. "Ugh," she said, a little embarrassed. "These fast songs are wearing me out." "Yeah, I could tell. You were hanging on to your hero. It was embarrassing. Are you ready to go home?" I asked caustically. She had a strange look in her eyes as she sat down. "Honey, you know I love you, don't you?" Everyone around us could see that I didn't like the way the conversation had started. I hope so, because I love you, I assured her. I know, darling, and I pray you love me enough to understand what I'm about to say, darling. When Dennis comes out of the men's room, he and I will leave together. He will drop me off tomorrow morning on his way to the airport. No one could believe what they were hearing. She wasn't even being secretive. I looked around at some of the surrounding tables and realized that everyone was now tuned in to our family problems. It's not going to happen, I roared. Everyone knew everything anyway. I didn't care. I wanted them all to hear me. We're leaving now. No, Walt, we're not. Please, honey, I need to do this. It's just for one night. Please try to understand. Understand? You mean understand that you want to break our wedding vows on a night like this, on our anniversary? Understand that you humiliated me in front of everyone in this place, and now you want to make love to this man on top of that? That's ridiculous. No. At that moment, big old Dennis returned, stood behind Jenny, and put his hands on her shoulders. Are you ready, darling? He said, looking at me with the grin of a conquering hero, ready to enjoy the spoils of his victory. Jenny took his hand. I'm sorry, Walt. Please try to understand, she said, standing up. Tears came to her eyes. Please, Jenny, I'm begging you, please don't do this, I said like a beaten puppy. I'm so sorry, she said. I heard some of the people around us gasp in shock as Jenny turned to walk away with her heart boyfriend. Great, I shouted, knocking over my chair and standing up abruptly. Then give me your rings back. What? She asked, looking back at me. You heard me. If you're going to sleep with another man, I don't think I can stop you, but I'll be damned if you're going to break our wedding vows by wearing the rings I gave you at the altar. Come on, Dennis intervened. If he acts like an asshole, give them to him, and you'll get them back in the morning. Okay, she said, taking them off her finger. You just make sure you put them in a safe place, honey, she called out, holding out the rings to me. I clasped them in my fingers and raised my hand above my head. How much am I being offered for this beautiful set of wedding and engagement rings? I bellowed to the crowd. $500, I heard someone yell from behind me. Walt, what are you doing? Jenny shouted. Well, it obviously means nothing to you. Maybe someone else can use them, someone who really knows what marriage is all about. Don't worry, I'll give you half of what I get for them in the divorce. I grinned. I thought I saw tears in her eyes, but it was hard to tell in the dimly lit club. Come on, Jenny, Dennis called out, pulling her by the arm. He's just bluffing. He's not going to ruin your marriage over one night. She seemed reluctant, but turned and walked away with a heavy load. 600, I heard as they walked out the door. A little over 2 hours later, I slipped a key card into the slot of room 228 of the Arlington Hills Days Inn. I opened the door and looked up to see a female figure dozing on the bed, her beautiful breasts encased in a tiny purple lace bra rising and falling in a gentle rhythm. She opened her dark blue eyes and smiled as I closed the door. Did you sell them? Of course, I told her. How much? She asked excitedly. 1,800, I answered. Oh, she said. Not bad. What does that mean altogether now? I did a quick estimate. Almost 37 grand, not bad for 3 weeks. Jenny slid off the bed, came over, put her arms around me, and kissed me passionately on the lips. She murmured. Someone's feeling frisky. Well, it's our anniversary, and after a performance like tonight, I let my words hang in the air for a moment. Where's Dennis? I asked. Every time we do this, he gets better and better. He was so good tonight, I was even starting to get jealous of you two, I said with a slight chuckle. He's in his room. I think he might have a girl with him. He did get a little scared tonight. When we were leaving, a few guys threw really hard looks at him. He thought they were going to come get him in the parking lot, but they didn't. I hope he's not planning on leaving. I would never have gotten that much for rings if everyone in the place didn't hate him so much. It would be a real shame to coach someone else again. I don't think you need to worry, dear. His income is almost $10,000, which isn't bad for an unemployed actor. Even if he were working, that's twice what he'd ever make on the stage of any theater. I hope so. I also think we've exhausted our hometown hospitality, dear. I'm sure everyone knows by now that all those rings are worthless. The Chicago cops probably already have our descriptions, and if they're not all looking for us, I'm sure some of them have already taken up the cause. It was great to be back home, but I think it's time for us to make love. I'll go tell Dennis we're leaving in the morning right after breakfast. Don't take too long, honey, she said seductively. I want to take care of you. It didn't take long for that to happen. I knocked on Dennis's door 2 rooms away from ours. He only opened it ajar. Jenny was right. He had a girl with him. Did everything go well after we left? He asked through the crack. Yep, I got 1,800, I replied. I saw him smile. But I think we should get out of here. I can feel the heat on the back of my neck. Meet me at the restaurant tomorrow at 9 in the morning. We'll leave right after breakfast. Okay, he replied quietly. You did a great job, I told him. Enjoy tonight. Dennis's smile grew wider. Oh, you can bet on it, I heard his companion giggle just before he closed the door. When I returned to our room, Jenny was lying in a seductive pose on the bed. The sexy lingerie she had looked so good in earlier was now missing, and the only thing she was wearing was a wide smile. I undressed in record time. I climbed into bed next to the most gorgeous woman I'd ever known and kissed her. Tenderly, with love and compassion. The kiss broke off, but Jenny continued to kiss my ear. It was a good idea to come back to Chicago for our anniversary, she said. With all our constant traveling, I'd almost forgotten what it felt like to feel at home. I know, me too, I replied quietly. Honestly, I thought all the moving around was starting to put a strain on our marriage, and I hoped Chicago would help restore some of the original magic we both felt when we lived here. Was I right? Yes, honey, you were right. Coming home reminded me of how much I love you, she said, reaching out and turning my head for a tender little kiss. Honey, just before you and Dennis left, I thought I saw real tears in your eyes. You did, she explained quietly. Sometimes when I play my part, it feels so real. Tonight I thought about what would have happened if we had really broken up. It frightened me, and I started to cry. That will never happen, my dear. We were born to be together. She smiled and looked lovingly into my eyes. So, my wonderful husband, where is our next portolet? I smiled. I had a truly loving wife. I thought about the Dakotas. With all this shale oil and these single guys with nothing to spend their money on, I think we could make enough to retire on, I joked. The end! Subscribe to my channel. Thank you!